more proof that the DOJ is corrupt and working for Donald Trump. Check this out.
Good evening from New York. I'm Chris Hayes. Today, as the government shutdown is about to enter its second week and the federal government's occupation of Chicago is looking increasingly violent and lawless, the government's top lawyer, Pam Bondi, traveled to Capitol Hill and demonstrated to the entire country why she may be the worst attorney general in this country's history. I mean, really, it's hard to come up with someone else who's done more damage to the Department of Justice, to the rule of law and the constitutional order in such a short time, at least in recent memory. From misleading the public on the Epstein files to blasting judges who dare to act as a check on the administration to, crucially, dropping criminal investigations into Trump allies and using criminal investigations explicitly to target Trump's enemies. We haven't seen an attorney general quite like Pam Bondi. Today, Bondi was supposed to be testifying before the Senate Judiciary Committee in her very first oversight hearing since becoming the country's chief legal officer. But instead, she made clear what we had all begun to assume, that she's Trump's lawyer, not Americans. And she also did it in sort of textbook MAGA fashion, trolling the senators, evading their questions with these scripted insults and comebacks dripping with contempt for the elected officials who dared to question her authority.
They are going to transfer Texas National Guard units to the state of Illinois. What's the rationale for that?
Yeah, Chairman, as you shut down the government, you voted to shut down the government, and you're...
And she had, the thing about this shit, y'all, is she had that shit wrote down. That whichever one to go ask her a question, she had something wrote down that she can say something crazy or smart to him about. This wasn't no... like she just made it off the top of her head. No, she had it wrote down. She reading it off of paper. She reading it off of paper. She don't even care about what they saying and trying to resolve or none of that. She just got her talking points. This is all she doing.
You're sitting here, our law enforcement officers aren't being paid. They're out there working to protect you. I wish you loved Chicago as much as you hate President Trump.
The same lobbyists who met with your people basically got rid of the antitrust case.
Senator, I don't think a lot of people like that you were out protesting with Antifa.
Right.
What is the answer? Did he take the money?
Was she
if
right?
you worked for me, you would have been fired because you were censured by Congress for lying with your
we
egregious...
can stipulate to, you can stipulate to all your personal attacks on the Democratic members of the committee.
Personal attacks.
The senators there threw their questions. And again, a lot of those questions weren't even like gotcha questions. I mean, what is the legal rationale for that? Just answer it, right? They laid out a damning case that Bondi has utterly corrupted and abused the justice system and the Justice Department in unconstitutional ways, illegal ways that really do strike at the very heart of our freedom as Americans. Like, are you free from malicious prosecution? And she had no real rebuttal for any of it other than this kind of intense performative truculence. Senators asked her about Trump border czar Tom Homan, totally legitimate question, right? Who reportedly accepted a bag containing $50,000 from undercover FBI agents last year on tape in exchange for help getting government contracts.
Now, this dude right here, the FBI put a sting out on his ass, and he accepted $50,000 from their ass in a paper bag, and it got out, and now they trying to hide it and shit. What happened to the damn money? What happened to the investigation? He was trying to sell some. He was trying to sell when Trump get in. He was trying to sell, you know what I'm saying, like top up positions and shit like that. And they did a sting on him, and he took the $50,000, and now it's gone. The investigation gone, and he got $50,000. What the fuck?
The FBI abruptly dropped its criminal probe into Homan on orders from Bondi's Department of Justice.
You know, there's a tape, right, with Mr. Homan? I mean, first of all, is there a tape that has audio and video of the transfer of the $50,000?
You would have to talk to Director Patel about that.
No, I'm talking to you.
I don't know the answer,
Yeah,
Senator.
you do know the answer to
Don't
that.
call me a liar.
My
He is
question
lying.
was, what became of the $50,000 in cash that the FBI delivered, evidently in a paper bag, to Mr. Homan?
Senator, I'd look at your facts. The
Okay,
investigation
never mind.
of Mr.
Never mind.
Homan
I can
was
see
to
I'm not going to get a straight
full
answer from you
review
to a very simple
by the
question.
FBI agents and the DOJ.
Do
They
you
found
know-
no credible evidence of wrongdoing. You know, you're very concerned about money and people taking money, and
Do
you
you
rail
know-
against
wait a
dark
second,
money.
wait a second, wait a
Yet
second.
you work with dark
Wait a
money
second.
groups all the time, Senator
Wait a second.
Whitehouse.
So, if you hadn't noticed, right, this big question spurred by MSNBC's exclusive reporting about Tom Homan, which is, what happened to the $50,000? A question as yet unanswered. A question that has not been, and Homan's not denied taking the money, right? So his border czar gets a bag of cash and keeps his job. And do we get an answer from Pam Bondi today? We do not. Meanwhile, Bondi's Department of Justice going full steam ahead with its politically motivated prosecution of former FBI director and Trump critic James Comey. He's set to be arraigned tomorrow morning on 2 federal charges. We had reporting that they were looking for big, beefy agents to perp walk him, but they wouldn't do it. That was something else Bondi refused to talk to senators about.
The night before James Comey's indictment, you had dinner with the President of the United States. Pretty intimate group.
Actually, there
James
were a lot of
Comey
people there that
discussed-
night. That's a
was
great
James
picture.
Comey discussed at that dinner?
I love that picture. That's a great picture. And there were a lot of people there that night.
I was going to ask you if you received advice, instruction, or request from anyone at the White House to direct the department to engage in any investigations, prosecutorial actions, including decisions not to investigate or prosecute anyone.
I'm not going to discuss any
Okay.
conversations.
But then how about the Truth Social post?
Yeah, she don't want to talk about that because Trump put it all in. He actually tried to do a DM to her, and he put that shit right up in public on X. He put that shit on X, and it's all around now. When he asked her to do all this damn shit to his enemies and all that shit, and then she started doing it. Now you trying to play like you don't know nothing about it. I don't know nothing about it. It's all been in all the damn news. You know that he wanted you to do the prosecute James Comey. I'm not a James Comey fan or nothing like that, but you know you want to do Letitia James and all the rest of them. So you knew what list he had, and he gave it to you.
Post on September 20th, 2025, in which the president said, "We can't delay any longer, Pam," using your name, "not bringing criminal charges are killing our reputation," his words, "and credibility." And then goes on to tell you to prosecute a member of this committee, to prosecute the Attorney General of New York, and to prosecute James Comey. Do you consider that a directive to the Justice Department?
Senator Klobuchar, President Trump is the most transparent president in American history. And I don't think he said anything that he hasn't said for years.
Trump, of course, literally posted his social media telling Pam to indict Comey, quote, "Pam, we can't delay any longer. Justice must be served now, President TJT." And remember, when the U.S. Attorney for Eastern Virginia, who was appointed by Trump, right, had good conservative bona fides, Emil Bovee apparently really liked him, worked with him. When he refused to do this obviously illegal, unconstitutional, malicious act, saying there wasn't sufficient evidence of crime and it would be an enormous transgression to prosecute someone because the president didn't like him, Bondi's DOJ forced him out. And they replaced him with a prosecutor who never prosecuted a case in her life so that she could indict Comey. A woman who, by the way, had previously been Trump's defense attorney. Just as well, Pam Bondi once defended Trump in his first impeachment trial back in 2020 before he gave her this highest legal post in the land. Bondi is in that post to do one thing and one thing only, whatever Trump wants her to do. She's not here to answer to anyone else, least of all the American people and their elected officials, as California Senator Adam Schiff pointed out in another testy exchange.
So these are just some of the questions you refused to answer, or have answered with personal attacks on members of this committee. You were asked whether you consulted with career ethics lawyers, as you promised you would do during your nomination hearing, when you approved the president receiving a $400 million gift from the Qataris. You refuse to answer that question. You were asked who or what role you may have played or who played the role in asking that Trump's name be flagged in any of the Epstein documents gathered by the FBI. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Homan kept the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked whether Homan paid taxes on the $50,000 bribe money. You refused to answer that question. You were asked, did career prosecutors find insufficient evidence to charge James Comey? You refused to answer that question. You were asked, how are military strikes on these boats in the Caribbean legal? And you refused to even answer that question. You were asked,
a law degree,
excuse
Senator
me,
Schiff?
excuse me.
One point of fact, Adam Schiff does have a law degree. He's practiced law longer than Pam Bondi, who is, as you can see, in a weird way, right? Covering for this authoritarian administration, condescending to our elected officials, all while going about the work of doing what Donald Trump wants, delivering exactly the kind of justice that he craves for my friends, everything, and for my enemies, the law. Senator Amy Klobuchar, Democrat of Minnesota, does have a law degree. In fact, she was one of those Senate Judiciary Committee members you just heard questioning Pam Bondi today, and she joins me now. Senator, we'll get to substance,
Chris.
but in some ways it's hard to get substance because, as your colleague Senator Schiff pointed out, she really didn't answer many questions. So I was going to start with this. I have never quite seen a performance. I have covered many oversight hearings in my life. I've seen testy exchanges, honestly. Really, they get heated. I have never seen anything like that. Have you ever seen that approach to an oversight hearing?
I have not. And one of my favorite parts that I had not seen was when Senator Schiff said, okay, we'll stipulate that you're attacking each one of us. We will stipulate to that. But actually, what was happening, I think you know, was dead serious. You know, I asked about this Comey prosecution, which was clearly ordered by the president. It was a vengeance prosecution. I asked, and she didn't answer, said wouldn't answer. I asked about the removal and the pushing out, the termination of Eric Siebert, who was the conservative Republican who opined that, in fact, the facts did not support a prosecution. She wouldn't answer that. I asked about the firing of a 20-year experienced prosecutor who is head of national security work in that same U.S. Attorney's Office, who was fired later because some conservative influencer had said that they thought they were involved in the Comey case, nothing to do with this case, and in fact was working on getting justice for our service members in Afghanistan. And then you heard what my other colleagues asked about. You had White House and Welch asking, where's the $50,000 that was given to the border czar? You have got Durbin and Schiff questioning why won't you release the Epstein files? What advice did you get? And then you had Senator Padilla, something that you didn't catch at the beginning there, asking, will you follow court orders? She wouldn't answer that. It was outrageous. She is the chief legal officer for the people of the United States, not for the president of the United States.
So,
hey, we're going to leave it right there, y'all. But as you see, they trying to cover up the Epstein files. They don't want to open up the government. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to do their vote or, you know what I'm saying, nothing like that. They trying to cover up the $50,000 the dude got. You know what I'm saying? They don't want to say what happened to it, what happened to the investigation, or you know what I'm saying? Did he even pay taxes on that motherfucker? You know what I'm saying? So what is really going on? You know, why are you covering up all this stuff? And that's just two of the little things that they covering up. You know, it's more than that. You know what I'm saying? We talked about more than that. You know what I'm saying? But they're just two major. But you know what I'm saying? We're gonna leave it right there. Please like, subscribe, and all that old good stuff. We're trying to build a channel. Let's get up to 500, y'all. Let's get 500. Let's get 500. It's all free, so just hit that button for me. All right, y'all. We out. Peace.